when I made that statement. Due to media propaganda perpetrated by the federal government, one could look into Operation Mockingbird. Many immediately associate that interpretation with racism and slavery, as if the Northerners were altruistic, loving people that were fed up with the racist Democrats in the South. They then spread the lie that the parties switched to explain why the Republicans are now the racist ones. The harsh reality is the Civil War had much less to do with slavery than we're led to believe. Many politicians from both sides were and still are racist, and they've worked together to enslave all Americans, regardless of skin color. After the Civil War, the 13th and the 14th Amendments were instituted. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery by stating, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." The word "their" being plural, as the jurisdiction is of the several states. Obviously, voluntary servitude is omitted. A free person would have every right to serve whatever or whomever they please. That also means that you would have to be able to stop volunteering for it to remain constitutional. Before we discover how to stop volunteering to be the slaves of the United States government, let's see how we were tricked into doing so in the first place. The 14th Amendment allowed all people born in the United States to become citizens by stating, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside." There are three important things to notice in that statement. First, this amendment is referring to a single jurisdiction, as it's referring to the level of a singular federal government. This is distinctly different from the reference to several jurisdictions in the 13th Amendment. The importance of this will become clear shortly. Second, it says, "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof," not "are subject to the jurisdiction thereof," meaning people can be born here or naturalized without being subject to the United States federal government's jurisdiction. How that can be lies in the rest of the sentence, where it says, "citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside." What happened here is the creation of a new class of citizenship. Before the 14th Amendment, a citizen of one of the several states was automatically a citizen of the United States of America. There was no such thing as a citizen of the United States federal government. People born in Washington, D.C. were not citizens. Again, the only status was a state citizen. To understand this dual citizenship, let's read some court rulings. If at any point you'd like to ponder or read these rulings for yourself, feel free to pause. They will all be on the screen. The ruling on Tashiro v. Jordan states that there is a citizenship of the United States and a citizenship of a state. The ruling on Kitchens versus Steele states, a citizen of the United States is a citizen of the federal government. The ruling on Gardena versus Board of Registrars of Jefferson County states, there are then, under our Republican form of government, two classes of citizens, one of the United States and one of the state. The ruling on U.S. versus Anthony states, the term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states, in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. Remember that term resident. It'll be important later. I will use the term U.S. citizen, federal citizen, and 14th Amendment citizen interchangeably, as you can now see that they are one and the same. It is evident, then, that there is a federal and a state citizenship. So can someone be one without being the other? These next court rulings will make that clear. The ruling on McDonnell versus the state says, he was not a citizen of the United States. He was a citizen and a voter of the state. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. The same U.S. v. Anthony case from earlier also stated in the ruling, an individual can be a citizen of one of the several states without being a citizen of the United States. Cross versus the Board of Supervisors ruled that both before and after the 14th Amendment to the federal Constitution, it has not been necessary for a person to be a citizen of the United States in order to be a citizen of his state. I can hear you thinking, okay, I believe you. What does it matter though? Do I want to be solely a state citizen and not a citizen of the federal government? What's the difference? To answer those questions, we must read some far more interesting court rulings. This is where it gets juicy. The ruling on Belmont versus the town of Gulfport stated, taxpayers are not state citizens. U.S. versus Slater decided in its ruling, unless the defendant can prove he is not a citizen of the United States, the IRS has the right to acquire and determine a tax liability. Before I get into why a state citizen doesn't have to pay taxes, you must understand the difference in the rights of a federal and state citizen. In the Supreme Court ruling on Jones versus Temer, it was decided the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment protects very few rights because it neither incorporates the Bill of Rights nor protects all rights of individual citizens. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state. You heard that right. The Bill of Rights is not protected for U.S. citizens, for 14th Amendment federal citizens. Want more proof? In the case of Hogg versus CIO, it was decided the first 8 amendments have uniformly been held not to be protected from state action by the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment. In the ruling on the case of Twining v. New Jersey, it was decided the right to trial by jury in civil cases guaranteed by the 7th Amendment, and the right to bear arms guaranteed by the 2nd Amendment, have been distinctly held not to be privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. And in effect, the same decision was made in respect of the guarantee against prosecution, except by indictment of a grand jury, contained in the 5th Amendment, and in respect of the right to be confronted with witnesses, contained in the 6th Amendment. It was held that the indictment made in trial by jury guaranteed by the 6th Amendment were not privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, as those words were used in the 14th Amendment. We conclude, therefore, that the exemption from compulsory self-incrimination is not a privilege citizenship guaranteed by this clause of the 14th Amendment. That is absolutely shocking. What rights do U.S. citizens have then? Well, the Supreme Court ruling on U.S. v. Valentine will tell us. It states the only absolute and unqualified right of a United States citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. That's it. That is the one right of a United States citizen. All else is a privilege that can be taken away at any time. It's starting to make sense how they're able to do all that we are seeing happen in the world. How they can punish us for victimless crimes and tax us on everything we own. What has happened here is that we've switched from the jurisdiction of constitutional law to the jurisdiction of commercial law, the law of merchants. Shortly after the passing of the 14th Amendment, the United States Incorporated. When you hear United States, that is the corporation. When you hear United States of America, that is the original country. Notice that the words United and States are not capitalized because they are describing the states rather than referring to a specific entity, because the jurisdiction was of multiple states. More capitalization is often a sign of corporate jurisdiction, as that is a single entity. It's a proper noun. They also created this change on a state level. All the state governments, like California State, for example, were incorporated, and this time they began with an uppercase S for state of, like in state of California, as opposed to California State, where the state was lowercase. I bet you didn't know that the state of California is not based in Sacramento like California State was. The state of California is based in Washington, D.C., along with all other 49 state of governments. The original governments are still there. They are just overlaid by this corporation. All the original government positions still exist. They are just empty. After creating these changes, the United States gave the former slaves U.S. citizenship, which guaranteed them civil rights rather than constitutional rights. As you've seen, there is only one absolute right U.S. citizens have access to. The rest are privileges. All civil rights are privileges. They slowly made every new child a federal citizen through their birth certificates until every state citizen was also a federal citizen. You just saw with the nation and country that the capital letters are often a sign of the corporate entity. Ever wonder why names are in all capitals or a social security number? So why would the government want to make everyone a United States citizen as well? Let's read the last two court cases for the answer. In the ruling on Wheeling Steel Corp versus Fox, it was stated, therefore, the U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the Union are classified as property and franchises of the federal government as an individual entity. In the ruling on Hendrick versus Maryland, it was decided a U.S. citizen, upon leaving the District of Columbia, becomes involved in interstate commerce as a resident does not have the common law right to travel of a citizen of one of the several states. You heard that right. U.S. citizens are property, and if they're outside of D.C., that property is in interstate commerce. Of course, it's all about power and money. They can do just about whatever they want to U.S. citizens, other than infringe on their sole right to residing here. You've probably heard the statement, property can't own property. That's why they can tax U.S. citizens on all their income and property. They don't really own it. Taxes are like their rent and interest. That sure gives them a lot of money, as does all the debt they've built up. I'm sure you've wondered who the government is $30 trillion in debt to. Some of you know it's the Federal Reserve Bank, which truly isn't a government agency. What sort of bank gives out loans without collateral? Well, it turns out U.S. citizens, since they are property, are the collateral. That is why our birth certificates look like warehouse receipts. That is why our birth certificates and our driver's licenses and our social security cards all have bonds against them. If a state citizen is having a child, it is highly recommended to not sign their birth certificate and establish their nationality in other ways. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. How could someone who is already a U.S. citizen get out of this? Can people reclaim their rights and stop paying taxes? I said it's constitutional, so people must be able to just stop volunteering, right? Well, that's right. But to understand how you can get out, how anyone could get out, you must understand the three statuses that exist in this country, and be wary of enormous mistakes some people have made, as tricky and confusing as possible. And to take that further, they had to add in a third status and change the name of the original one. With the Immigration and Nationality Act, or INA, what used to be called a state citizen or a citizen of the United States of America was covered up by the term U.S. national. I will use these three terms interchangeably: state citizen, citizen of the United States of America, and U.S. national. You've seen now that one can be a state citizen or U.S. national without
American
being
national.
a U.S. citizen, or one can be both a U.S. national and a U.S. citizen. This and the third status was further described in the INA as referenced on the Department of State website in this article titled Certificates of Non-Citizen Nationality, the link to which is in the description below. The third paragraph states, as defined by the INA, all U.S. citizens are U.S. nationals, but only a relatively small number of persons acquire U.S. nationality without becoming U.S. citizens. This further confirms that one can be a U.S. national, which was previously referred to as a state citizen, without being a U.S. citizen. The third status is a non-citizen national, which this article explains. Such a person is not a citizen of one of the United States of America or of the United States Federal Corporation, yet is still considered a national. Currently, the only such people are the people of American Samoa and Swains Island. By not giving these people birthright citizenship, the government was able to claim that U.S. nationality only exists to preserve these indigenous cultures. We all know how much the government cares about indigenous cultures here in America. This is so important to them that when the U.S. District Court for the District of Utah ruled in 2020 that American Samoans should be given U.S. citizenship by birthright, both the United States federal government and the American Samoan government contested the ruling within 24 hours. You can check the description for an article on where that case went. Using this third status to hide the original citizenship not only worked, as people believe that a national is an American Samoan, it also caused some problems for people attempting to become U.S. nationals. Some people mistakenly revoked their citizenships and chose to become a non-citizen national. By doing so, they lost their chance to reclaim their constitutional rights and had to either leave the country, go to American Samoa, or apply for naturalization. These are likely the horror stories you may have heard about becoming a national. The words we use are very important. I advise avoiding making the mistake of giving up all citizenship. Now that that's clear, I can discuss the ways people have continued to affirm the false presumption that was assigned to them at birth that they are U.S. citizens. The main way they've done this is by asking specific questions anytime U.S. citizens have gone to court
Yeah, peace and love. What up, though? What it do? What's popping? What's cracking? I had to cut old boy off because he started talking, um, as if being a subject citizen was, acceptable. If you're trying to be completely free and not tied into being pledged as collateral for this fiat monetary system that they've created. Ultimately, for anybody who knows this knowledge, that is the goal. Again, he was saying U.S. national. It's not how we do it over here. It's American national. If you're gonna, try to still deal with these people, because think about it. Once you begin to file various documents within their various counties, cities, states, and municipalities, and court records and city county buildings, and you're still talking about municipal entities who have an annual budget that comes from the Fed, right, which still ties them in. So when you start talking about being that of a state citizen versus a U.S. citizen, I don't care what type of citizen it is, you still a subject. And with that being said, once you're a subject, then these millions of statutes and codes and mandates and acts and policies that they've created applies to you, right? Again, so be it the IRS or not, you know what I mean, is going to hinder you, as it's hindered will continue to hinder all of us when it comes to ownership of anything. Again, if you have purchased something, but you're still required to pay some type of annual tribute to whom? If it's yours. If it belongs to you, why am I paying? Or if it belongs to me, why on an annual basis or quarterly basis that it's assumed that I comply to, it don't make sense. It doesn't. And myself personally, I just kind of sit back because these aren't my main points of contention. Again, it seems no matter which way you go within a so-called conscious community or a particular religious denomination or whatever it is that you have filtered yourself to fit into and stuck yourself there on a permanent basis, you're going to have issues with growth into fruition and wisdom. You're not going to be able to acquire it when you're running around here. And don't get mad at me for telling you the truth, because I've done the same things. I wouldn't be able to speak to you if I didn't have, I wouldn't even attempt to reach out to anybody if I didn't already have these recorded experiences in many, different areas or whatever. But when you're running around talking about things like I'm a Hebrew Israelite or I'm a Jehovah Witness, or I'm, you stunted your own growth because you're saying that that's the highest of the high and that's my clique and that's who I'm running with, which again has been a problem for us as the original indigenous, aboriginal, or Tartanus Americans on this land, us grouping off into other sets and disrespecting one another or looking down, on another particular set because you don't agree with their ideologies. I say the ideologies and the theologies and school of thought, whatever you want to call it, those are supposed to be, again, like the first grade, the second grade, the third grade, the fourth grade. Like, are you so dedicated to elementary school or the fifth grade or the eighth grade? You loved it so much, that's where you decided to stay. And again, that's the problem. It's a problem. Um, on a real, I said we was gonna be live during this entire weekend. And for what you see as the title of this live stream wasn't the intended title. This was something that was already there, a live that I was supposed to do last year sometime that never got done. So you see the question mark behind what it says, according to some of the things that people are claiming is pseudo. No surprise, it actually isn't pseudo. What it is you have various so-called scholars who haven't graduated into a particular section of knowledge, if you will, you know what I'm saying? And being that they have no knowledge of it, they call it pseudo because they don't know shit about it, you know? And then the lightweight of a Google search or something like that, especially when we're talking about something that's ancient, you won't be able to uncover most. And what's happening is, again, you're gonna have certain people who have particular beliefs that look at certain things that we, without a inner or overstanding of it, and they're gonna look at it as some type of flawed science. I don't know. Again, if you are a true scientist, you know that it is very possible that something that you standing on right now can be snatched from up under you, right? I always mention, again, once upon a time, we were being taught in biology, in, science class, period. I know it, especially during, for me, middle school, 80s, late 80s, we were being taught that when a person passes over, that the dead cells of your fingernails and your hair continue to grow, right? And this was not just being taught in a middle school or elementary school in Michigan or in Florida or Georgia. This was being taught in major universities, right? Go back and look at it, the 60s and the 70s. This is what they were teaching. But sometime, I want to say in the early 2000s, they discovered that was not true, right? So now they don't teach that anymore. They don't teach that the dead cells continue to flourish, being specifically what they were teaching us, that your hair and your fingernails continue to grow after you pass. I can't be making this up. This is nothing that as a child I ever gave a thought to. This is what they were teaching. And again, if you are an elder and you were, attending any of their universities in the 60s or the 70s, you know that I'm telling the truth, right? So, like I said, it's somebody somewhere who hasn't even been privy to the information that, that wasn't true. So it can be somebody that I can run into right now and I make the statement, well, your hair and your nails does not continue to grow after you perish. And they will argue me up and down because they still have belief in, the 1989 version of, biochemistry and biology and marine biology and things like this and that. You know what I'm saying? So this is why I've been really sitting back, because I don't want to argue with y'all about belief, right? And when I see these particular ideologies taking precedence over everything else that's going on within the conscious community that we need to be addressing and finding some type of remedy and recourse for, I don't want to hear anything about your book of beliefs. I just don't. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but again, obviously a book that's been in existence since your boy King James commissioned, who is it? Francis and Shakespeare. What's his name? Sir Francis Bacon. What am I talking? What is the name? I'm talking to myself. I told y'all I needed some help. My memory ain't the best, but I'm just saying. How long ago was the 1600s? Like, this is not an ancient book. And if those answers was in there, as long as it's been in our possession, other than over us having a possession of land, we chose to have possession of belief. If the answers was in that book, don't you think we would be done solve the problem by now? It's like, what kind of cheat sheet was you given? That ain't a good cheat sheet for you to still be, us as a people to still be in the predicament that we're in, is all I'm saying. So it's difficult for me to interact, with my own brothers and sisters who have a large portion of not just the knowledge, but the due diligence and the discipline to be able to actually stand on a square. But the question becomes, what are you standing on? Is the foundation that you standing on strong enough to, assist in catapulting us to where we're supposed to be as a people, right? And again, these are not the answers. It's no different than us depending upon the Black Caucus to remedy some of these issues that we have. I don't see those as answers. For me, again, the simple answer is to stop doing business with these people. If you know that according to whatever U.S. code and Title 42 and all of this other shit, Title 18, if you know that the United States of America is a corporation doing business, then you would, the same as the state of whatever, you know what I'm talking about? That's taxing you and extorting you. If you know that these are merely businesses, then it should be easy not to do business with them, right? As bringing about, a solution, providing some relief. So again, we just listened to I don't even know the European name. I'm not gonna sit here in front. It was basically a YouTube video. The title, definitely, if you watched the live, you saw the title because I was going back and forth, right? And once upon a time, prior to, I know YouTube was in existence long before I began to utilize it. But what I'm saying to you is, even when it first kicked off, I didn't have access to it. It wasn't on my mind, right? So we had books in what I used to call CD-ROMs, which y'all call PDFs today, stored on discs or whatnot, of Cracking the Code, Redemption Manual, all type of, even the Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, first edition through the fourth edition, I still have to this day on a CD-ROM, right? So again, the way we went about dealing with some of this information was actually being active, not arguing with anybody on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or wherever y'all do that at. None of that was going on. At least, not in my era, right? So again, I see a lot of what's going on. A lot of the people who you all follow, I've known almost 2 decades, and it seems to be the same story. But what some of us don't realize is that story, that's the same story to you and I, is a new story to some of these other brothers and sisters who weren't aware of things like Code of Federal Regulations 72.11, all crimes are commercial, and all of this type of stuff. This is new shit to them. You know what I'm saying? They're just now being exposed to certain information that many of, many brothers and sisters inside of the Moorish movement and the Pan-African movement and the Hebrew Israelite movement and so on and so forth have labeled as sovereign citizen ideology, right? And during the last live, I was trying to explain to you all that the utilization of the various amendments within the Constitution and the various articles within the Constitution, and going into certain things like the Code of Federal Regulations and the Uniform Commercial Codes. These are contracts and documents that have been in existence for a very long time. And just because someone utilizes an affidavit or a tort claim, or you know what I'm saying, it doesn't mean that they are claiming to be sovereign citizens, or that they are a part of that particular set of people who utilize the law against criminals. Because it's a criminal act to rob people, terrorize them, hold them for ransom, and sexually assault them. And these are things that we're talking about before people have been duly convicted of a crime, which is what they want, because according to the 13th Amendment, involuntary servitude is illegal. Listen to that. Involuntary servitude is illegal unless you're duly convicted of a crime. But I don't even have to get to the duly convicted of a crime portion of that article, right? The fact that they're saying involuntary servitude is illegal, right? So if involuntary servitude is illegal, you're telling me that voluntary servitude is fine. That's what I get out of that. Or that voluntary servitude can actually exist if involuntary servitude exists. Sounds crazy, but if you are a avid reader or a student of, I don't even like calling it law. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about, because there's so much. You got Michigan compiled law. You know what I'm saying? You got the annotated version of things. You got the unabridged version of, you know what I'm saying? Like, some people don't get it because most people aren't reading, right? Anything concerning what they refer to as legal matters, our people, the first thing we think about is an attorney, right? Which becomes a conflict of interest because, again, stepping into the courtroom, your attorney, the prosecutor, the judge, everybody who is in the courtroom is an officer of the court, which makes it a conflict of interest when it comes to you, because you are the person that's not an officer of that court. That's like going into a business deal and you don't have any representatives, you know what I'm saying, but yourself. And it's 900 you versus 900 other people or other representatives of particular corporation, that may want to do business with you, right? It's 900 of them and is one of you. And you're meeting them in their territory. You can't make it make sense. The only way it makes sense is, again, it can only make sense if you make it be what it is. Or if you look at it, you know what I'm saying, for what it is, instead of looking at it as some type of, you can't even say government, because, the root of it is what it is. It's a matter of control and rule. A democracy is what it is mob rule, majority rule, right? So the people who they're pointing at and referring to as minorities don't rule. So you have no say. Which is why we don't use the term minority in reference to our people. Minority, a minor. Not of, mature mind to be able to make decisions for yourself. Therefore, ward of the state, citizen, subject, the whole shit, it comes together. When you begin to read it, you're comprehended. But again, the people are more interested in seeing silly ass debates with so-called scholars versus one another, when, again, true scholars don't get off into that. It may be entertainment, And you may learn some things. You might learn something, but it is not what you think it is. It can't be the end all be all to everything based off of what one particular brother or sister is professing. It is what it is. I ask you, have you experienced it? And if the answer is no, you just comfortable with being a follower of some of these brothers and sisters who've been around for a long time, right? Some of them, their stances may have changed, and some of them remain the same, but the particular people who I'm talking about know for sure, like, you're not a true scholar if you can't argue both sides, right? If I see let me see, a Hebrew Israelite and a Moor or a Pan-African, in a heated debate, again, the scholar is the person who can argue both sides. If you can't argue both sides, you don't have no fucking scholarship. Again, you can be upset. I'm used to it. It's nothing. But I can't participate in the bullshit that y'all be standing on. Y'all be standing on some bullshit. It's like it's become a fad to just go against the grain of whatever is put out into mainstream media, right? If the people say they went to the moon, y'all gonna say they didn't go to the moon. If the man got shot in the parking lot, y'all gonna say he didn't get shot in the parking lot. Just, shit, knowledge don't work like that. Wisdom don't work like that. Rather than to accept that some particular people just aren't good representatives of what we refer to as the cream of the crop. We say we the first and all of this other shit, right? So instead of, I'm not saying that you have to accept the flaws of the leadership. That's not what I'm saying. But to deny the flaws is to allow other stagnation to take place, right? And not only that, in some of these situations, I'm gonna keep it a buck. We gotta. Something my mother used to say to me growing up. She used to say, never marry a cop or never get involved with police officer, because they are alcoholics and woman beaters, and they are big on committing suicide, and sometimes not just committing suicide, taking their whole family out with them, their wife and their children. And you know what I'm saying? Now I'm getting this knowledge at a very young age. This is preteen, right? But right now, for everybody who can hear my voice, if you go Google exactly what I said, you'll see that, peace be upon her, mama was right. See, this is information again right now that's at your fingertips. But if you were actually listening to the elders give you the oral celebrate the oral tradition of passing down knowledge and wisdom, then you know what I mean, we would be probably a lot further ahead. Some of us didn't have grandparents, so to have grandparents and great grandparents as an adult, that's special. That is special. Trying to think what it was. I know what it was. I shared something that if sometimes when I see it pop up as a memory on a Fed book, I'll share it, and it was pertaining to the Constitution. What we call that the Great Law of Peace, prior to the European colonist invasion of this land. This was oral tradition. It wasn't written. Whether A lot of people are going to bring up the Iroquois. Okay. Um, and I'm not going to be, I'm not going to go against the grain of progress on this one because there's some things I could say. I'll speak, about the Powhatan before the Iroquois, which you're talking about a confederation. You're not talking about one clan or one tribe when you say Iroquois, So, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's no way that, again, the problem that we are having now is the same problem that the ancestors had. The ancestors made the decision, the ones who did. I'm not saying all of the clans or the clan mothers and the chiefs, the Makus, I'm talking about, made the decision to do this. But what happened was when our ancestors made the decision to do business with these European invaders who really didn't have shit for us, some watered down alcohol, what did they bring? Some weapons that eventually they wrote laws to take the pistols from you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same shit that's happening now. We don't have no business doing business with these people, especially when you know that how many 30 trillion, how many trillions? We ain't looked at that national debt clock in a minute. Let's look at that. Let's see what that has said. See what that look like. Been a minute. But again, it's like the BET Viacom situation with Tyler Perry, and who else was trying to buy that shit? It's Diddy, and at the end the deal didn't go through because they wanted $3 billion for a company whose evaluation ain't $3 billion. What I'm gonna give you $3 billion, and your company is evaluated at 1.9 billion, but I'm gonna be dumb enough to give you $3 billion for it, for a majority what do they call it? Not majority ownership, but majority something. I don't know exactly what they call the shit, but yeah, that don't make sense. No more than it makes sense for me to want to continue to be pledged collateral for a debt of 30-some trillion. Let's look on here right quick, see what I have said. It's been a minute. Let's look at this national debt clock. See everybody talking about Scruncho and TK Kirkland right now. I'm tripping about I heard TK Kirkland on Vladimir show some years ago. Yeah, this should be it right here. And he, I don't know, they got, try to kick knowledge, you know what I'm saying? And is what he said, he got his knowledge twisted up, is what had happened. TK Kirkland said that Putin, what's Putin's first name? He a Vladimir too? Putin, the Russian Putin. He said that he told Vlad, he said, yo, did you know that Putin went to Stanford University here in, North America? And, Vladimir laughed at him, and I was laughing too, because I know, he got his story mixed up. It wasn't Putin who attended Stanford. That was actually, what's old boy name that bought Twitter and changed the name of Twitter? I know I done talked about it on here a few times, but the Tesla cat, Elon Musk. It was actually Elon Musk, who is a South African. Again, Elon Musk is a South African, and what he did is he ditched the South African military draft, right? He absconded, or however you say that, he didn't go register, or what I'm talking about. And he fled to Canada. And originally he attended a university in Canada and made his way down to the States and went to Stanford. Harvard, Stanford, one of them universities. And during Obama's presidency, Obama gave him how many million did I tell y'all he gave him? I don't forgot now. What, 200 million or 80, whatever it was, before Obama left office, because this was at the beginning of his presidency that he loaned his money to Elon Musk. But from what they've reported, Elon Musk repaid the loan. But ain't that some funny shit? This cat come from South Africa. He ditches the military draft in South Africa and escapes, flees. So my question is, how come don't he ain't got no warrants for evading the South African military draft just like that? So they can do that, right? I'm just saying, recognize that these people aren't just wealthy criminals. It's also a bloodline. I don't get off into Illuminati teams and what's the other shit y'all be talking about? The deep state and all that crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to make any claims of the validity of QAnon and all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got to be real careful with that satire ass information y'all be getting and regurgitating and shit and ready to fight about. You know what I'm saying? Again, we have real issues on the table. Why is real fiat currency on the floor and real issues on the table that need to be addressed and abolished and eliminated and terminated. Severed ties. You want to stay chained up. How much does 32,725,548,000,000? It did just say 47, and it just keeps moving and moving and moving. Where the mouse at? Uh-oh. What did I do? I X'd out the whole thing. I ain't mean to do that. I mean, it's time to go. That's exactly what that means. I mean, it's time to say goodnight on this one and come back with a real topic if possible. Everything that really needs to be said, to be honest with y'all, is on my Facebook page. That's kind of where I tap in and drop jewels, and these are the topics that we really want to talk about and address. And peace to the sister Abundance Child. There was a post. It's actually a melanated brewing company. I think it was called Blackamore or something like that. And I shared it. And I mean, people, I would say 25% of the feed was negative, but the rest, it seemed like people were joyful and happy to see, melanated people, have something, right? But then we had other brothers who can't stand the word black, and you know what I'm talking about? It had a major issue with it. And again, I've been where they're at. Why would you want to stay there? Is no peace there? Is no growth? Everything is fucking counterproductive as hell. All y'all do is argue with each other. Nobody got time for that shit. So again, this is why I just kind of sit back. Every time we get a little leeway, somebody come in and basically regurgitating some knowledge and information that, most of the people who I deal with have had that information for a long time, right? But everybody gets, excited and start patting this person on the back who's saying this shit as if you didn't already have his knowledge. And it would be okay if this particular individual who getting all the kudos off of sharing some knowledge that we already obtained from elders who have passed over if they were giving them their props. But they not doing that. They coming out here with this information like they created that shit. And I'm not even talking about one particular set, because we could have this conversation all night. Because I can point at the brothers and sisters who are referring to themselves as aboriginals, and at the same time, you know what I'm saying, being disrespectful to, and trying to shit on Moors, to be perfectly blunt about it. That's kind of, that shit just irritates me, because as far as I know, and we go back in time 10, 20, 30 years, nobody was using that word aboriginal or indigenous outside of the circles of Moors, whether you're talking about Wachita, Yamasee, or you know what I'm saying. This is terminology that was already being used by those who predate you, right? So it is just like, I'm gonna say something else too. You got your boy, I'm not gonna say his name, I don't know the guy, but to come out and be so bold as to say that Harriet Tubman never existed, that was something that was created. Now, if I felt that way and I could actually prove it, that's one thing. You know what I'm saying? But to just say some shit like that, and you're putting it on top of information that you're putting out here that's actual factual, right? But then you ruin it when you put that satire on top of it. Again, me personally, I know that it would be almost impossible for me to prove that peace upon the elder Harriet Tubman, for me to prove that Harriet Tubman didn't exist. So even if I fucking thought it, I probably would never say it, right? And I'm saying, why do you claim to be about our people and giving the people knowledge? So why you ain't over here shitting on these invaders? Why is you over here shitting on other melanated people? You know why. But again, we got amnesia. We've been through this shit multiple times already, over and over and over again, and I'm not willing to relive it with you all. That's why I sit back. When I feel like saying something, I say it. Outside of that, I don't want to be involved in all of that bullshit, because what happens is your favorite scholar or the popular scholar at the time, when they have interactions with somebody like me, what the excuse, they all give the same excuse that Brother Reggie gave, which is, sister, this is not for you, for us, this is for the people. We're just trying to get the people knowledge. Well, if you're giving the people knowledge, goddammit, don't make them choose one or over the other. Let them know that you get knowledge from two opposing fashions, but you're getting knowledge of both sets, right? Who are you to promote choosing one God, you know what I'm saying, or one section of knowledge, or one ancient cosmology over another? That's the dumbest shit ever. That proved to me, that's why I can sit back. I can sit back, because that's not scholarship. That's not how it go. Again, I told y'all multiple times already. A true scholar can argue both sides. I don't care what it is. You're not a real scholar if you can't argue both sides. You're not a scholar. You are someone who is emotionally attached to a particular doctrine or ideology and things like this and that. And that's why we can't fucking get nowhere. Because you love that shit and you more dedicated to that than you love yourself, your brothers, your sisters. I said it 1,000 times. Your mother, your father, yourself. You love Yahweh more than you love yourself, your mother, your father. You love Jehovah and Allah and Inky and Enlil and Marduk more than you love yourself, your mother, your brother, your sister, your father. You love aliens and shit, and you know what I'm talking about? You love flat earth and shit. Whatever it is, you love Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America more than you love yourself, your mother, your father, your children, your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters. And that shit is a fucking problem. Any particular magi, prophet, Sufi, I don't give a fuck what we talking about, messenger that brung a message, you ending it right there with that little bit of knowledge, and expect to be able to participate in bringing about our people, restoring the birthright, sovereignty, land rights, and things of that nature. You think, you know what I mean, the ideology that you've attached yourself to is gonna give you what we need wholly to get up out this predicament. The very same doctrine that made us become or look at one another as enemies. It's not the answer. I guarantee you, it's not the answer. So what we got? We got my brother the man. He done gave us a bunch of comments. I ain't even see it. My bad, bro. It's pretty much the same. Y'all know my conversation is pretty much address the real shit all the time. You know what I'm saying? Yup, due process of law there is not giving it to you because they are operating up under colorable color of law, deprivation of rights up under the color of law. Yeah, and they all work together because, again, they a bloodline. You know what I'm saying? That's like me and my cousins. You know, we may not stay. I might live on the west side of Detroit, and I might have some cousins on the east side of Detroit, right? And we cousins. You know what I'm saying? But don't get it twisted. When it's time to come together and form like Voltron, it's on. That's no different than y'all talk about Democrats and Republicans, and you know, y'all misconstrue that shit with the Republican form of government when that's not what it is and not what it has ever been. No different than, hey, when we see them utilizing God, in God they trust, right? And our generation said gold, oil, and drugs, but you know, the elders told us that was governmental ordinance department or some shit like that. God, the governmental ordinance departments. We said gold, oil, and drugs, or guns, oil, and drugs. So I don't know. I should have hit up the elder. I just really wanted y'all to hear the Eurasian say what you hear. You know, many of us, you know, discuss. And what I do know, you know what I'm saying? Again, I have no problem sharing. And we all need to operate and function in that manner, if you ask me. Make this a whole lot easier. And I'm trying to think. I did a little short live on Facebook last week, like during a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or something like that. And I don't even recall, you know, again, what my point of contention was, but I was pretty, oh yeah, I do know. And this is relative to the title of this bill, which, you know, again, many of my brothers and sisters inside of these various indigenous autochthonous American movements get mistaken again for being sovereign citizens. And I got a few stories. Matter of fact, I could probably write some books, you know, as to how sometimes those stances were in our favor. and this is long before, again, I know for sure when this shit was going on. I don't know exactly what year YouTube was started, but I don't think it was around. I could be wrong, because again, I'm not a connoisseur. Say 2005, 95. Man, okay. But all right, I'm just saying, I've been in situations where there were brothers and sisters who were claiming to be sovereign citizens, right? And they were not a part of the movements that I were a part of. And, I will be transparent. Those movements were the Great Seal, Washita, you know what I'm saying? Yamasee, right? Yamasee Muskogee, specifically, because you got a few different splendors of Yamasee clans, you know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, at the time, I was dealing with the Nubian nation of Moors as well, you know what I'm saying? And this is the reason why I say unfortunately, although a lot of knowledge was acquired during that era, by way of the massive amount of material that was being released by way of that particular nation of Moors, right? And the unfortunate part is that shit came back and bit us all in the ass based off of not just the charges alone, you know what I'm saying? We're not going to talk about the conviction and the pleading of the guilty, you know what I'm talking about? So yeah, y'all don't, and again, it's a lot of people still clinging on to that. And again, you cannot say nothing bad about that particular man. He's not guilty no matter what. It can be a video showing such vulgar behavior, and people will still, and that's that Jesus Jew shit. That's that Sky Daddy spell, that Sky Daddy syndrome that y'all still up under, as to where I'm like this. If someone, if somebody of a high stature is being accused of being a pedophile, I don't give a fuck who it is. I'm not gonna immediately say that individual is not guilty, or that they're guilty either. I just don't fucking know. I'm not gonna set up to the whole world 20 years and 15 years and 10 years after this person has been convicted and there's mountains of evidence of them being guilty. I'm not gonna sit up and say that individual is fucking innocent. That just go to show how, dogmatic, and you know what I mean, like, our people, it's the world. I'm it's not just specifically our people, but again, this is where the focus is, and in order to actually even have a community, you got to clean house. And if our brothers and sisters are not willing to clean house of the charlatans and the pedophiles and the, what I'm talking about, then this is what we have. The current situation that we're in, and we seem not to be able to fucking get out as a majority. And as a minority, you're not getting out of shit, because you are still up under the thumb of you're a minor. You're not mentally capable of handling your own affairs. You're a fucking minority. So again, in order for us to reach majority status, we have to clean house. And if we are not cleaning house, i.e. addressing these frauds, these criminals inside of our own neighborhoods, because they're not communities, then what the fuck you think we gonna be able to do when it comes to these fucking invaders? Nothing if you can't clean up home. So again, all I can do, in certain situations is sit back, because me saying the same things repeatedly over and over and over, don't nobody want to keep hearing the same shit. No different than I want to keep seeing and experiencing the same shit within various sets. I don't give a fuck who it is. Name them. Whether you're talking about the foundational blacks, whether you're talking about, the space cadets and the tree huggers, and you know what I'm saying? When you get to the top and you meet their leader, It's always some scumbag ass nigga. Keep up good fronts. You know what I'm saying? But the very people who are closest to these pigs and right next to them and around them, like an Africa Bambooty and those who were directly around him, they knew what his activities was. But nobody was willing to clean house. Because the minute you say Africa Bambooty or Dwight York or whoever is this, that, and the third, then you become public enemy number one. Which I don't mind being. For the truth. Again, truth and trust go hand in hand. So it seems to be, if I'm telling you the truth, you're supposed to be able to, you know what I'm saying? Build trust with me instead of hating me. But that's not how our people do. You start telling the truth about these people who they look up to, then you get hated. How you think, you know what I'm saying? My status went from all the way up here to all the way down here. Getting this many people participating in the live streams to this many people participating in the live streams. You know what I'm saying? Now, if I was parroting the shit like everybody else do, oh, the earth is flat and, you know, Trump not guilty and all this other dumbass shit y'all be on, to me, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you know what I'm saying? To me, that shit's stupid. Whether you talking about Biden or Trump, who gives a fuck about either one of them? Whether you talking about Democrats or Republicans, who gives a fuck about either one of them? The better question is, do you think they give a fuck about us? So why would they even be a part of the discussion? Even if I was wealthy enough to figure out if it's a permanent block and this and that, who gives a fuck about that? I don't care about that. I'm not trying to ridicule y'all, you know what I'm saying? But I don't feel like that should be a big thing as to where we start hating on one another. He say the earth is round or a sphere, and you say it's flat, and ain't neither one of you motherfuckers got no laboratories, no ships, no satellites, no nothing to be able to detect shit. The same thing with the jab and all of that. You know what I'm saying? We don't have the fucking laboratories or the lab technicians or the biochemists. We don't have none of those, you know what I'm saying, facilities to be able to say 100% or even 90% that this is what the fuck it is. But what we do, or what we are able to calculate and deal with the percentages and statistics of, is poverty. Are people being incarcerated at fucking levels that have never happened in historical time of humanity? The rate of homosexuality being promoted to our youth? This is shit that we know for a fact 100%. I argue with you all motherfucking day about, because you're not gonna argue with me a bit about the shit, because you know it's a fucking fact. This other shit that y'all talking about, all I can do is just sit back till y'all come back to motherfucking reality. So again, when you are as real as I am, nobody want to hear that shit. Everybody want to hear the Fantasy Island shit. They want to hear the QAnon shit. They want to hear the deep state shit. They want to, you know, what's old boy Rod Hayes, you know, they want to hear the spaceship shit. All you got to do is go read all them fucking Dr. York books yourself, and you will know all the information that this nigga know. Now, whether or not the information is right and exact is a whole different goddamn discussion. Where the fuck is the planet risk at, and what the fuck does it have to do with what we doing over here in Detroit, Chicago, New York, Houston, Atlanta, LA, New Orleans, Chattanooga, goddammit, Memphis, Nashville? What the fuck do it have to do with what we doing? When clearly I can leave Detroit right now, get on I-75 going southbound, right? And by the time I enter Ohio and get to Toledo, right on the sign, it says Toledo Corp. It don't say the city of Toledo. It says Toledo Corp Inc. on the goddamn sign. I'm saying that is a business doing business. I don't want to do business with them. First of all, they not the real Toledo. You start talking about Toledo, then you talking about El Andalus. You know what I'm saying? You talking about the real Alhambra society. You know what I'm talking about? Like, so for me to even accept a Toledo, Ohio, outside of anything other than being a corporate business entity that was established, you know what I'm talking about, and incorporated in a particular year, it's not real. It's a fucking fiction. It's a fiction that wants all the fiat that it can fucking get. And if the fiat was actually something of value, why do they take that shit and burn it? I'm just asking. I don't know everything. And many things that I do know, I forget. Because I got amnesia to a smaller degree than many of us, but I still got it. You know, take these Fed notes, the promissory notes, this fiat, and they gonna burn it to a crisp. But they will lock you up and murder your ass for going up in the bank and trying to strong arm, you know what I'm talking about? For some shit that they gonna take and they gonna burn. I done shut my whole other screen down, so I really don't even have nothing to rely on and share unless I take it and drag it, and it's getting late. Let me see. I wanted to at least address some of the stuff that I shared today, but if you listen to the beginning of the live, I don't know what the cat name is that was talking, you know what I'm saying? But again, if I'm talking and while I'm talking, let's just say you're at home and you know your house, the library in your house, you know what I'm saying, is hella, like you got hella law books, you got everything. So while I'm speaking, you can verify or deny what I'm saying. And nothing I've said is to be denied. Non-debatable. I hate I did that. I'll take up another screen. I can put it over here. I wish I had a commercial break. That's what I need. Let me see. We need a commercial break so I can get here what I came here to do, like Red Man. Let's see. Yeah, this whole boy froze, and I know what it was. I was supposed to been doing, which was um, and it's funny too because I saw the elder Taj Tariq Bey reading from this on a random YouTube video that popped up. It was from some months ago though. That um, him and his sister, Dr. G, I think that's her name. Um, what he was reading from is known as the greatest hoax. I was supposed to discuss that, but more importantly, the set the record straight, or let's set the record straight, the portion of the Great Law of Peace that I shared today in every year on a Fed book or whatever. I actually have the whole shit um, on this PDF by way of scribed, right? So I was gonna go over more of it. So, so what we'll do is we'll do that on Saturn's Day because I'm more in the mood to discuss the great hoax, to deal with that. This particular 3-page document that was put in my hand by way of peace be upon her granny at the dojo, you know what I'm saying? Back in 2005, it like changed everything, everything. Let me see. Throw it up on the screen for y'all right quick. Boop. Let's see. Let me see. All right. So that should be clear. See, this is stuff that you hear, but what do you call it? A bibliography? How do you say that? I don't know if I'm saying it right. You say that, people start thinking you talking about the Bible. They know how black Espanol. See now, when it comes to the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch, these are things that you need to know, right? Or maybe not. I don't know what they say. Ignorance is bliss. Yeah, ignorance is bliss because there's zero accountability for some shit that you know not. Yeah, zero accountability. So we call it the greatest hoax, but the document is actually called "Who Owns You?" I don't know. Just imagine when I originally got this. How do you research this, right? So, number one, the IRS is not a U.S. government agency. It is an agency of the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, right? And where you go to prove this, whether or not where you go to verify it, would be diversified metal products versus IRS. ETAL.CV-93-405E-EJE USD CDI, Public Law 94 564, Senate Report 94, 1148, page 5967, Reorganization Plan number 26, Public Law 102 391. See, my problem with this is page 5967. What fucking book is this where there are more than, if they have a page 5660, 5967, I'm thinking it's, pretty safe to assume that this book has more than 6,000 fucking pages, right? So when I say these people have millions of statutes and codes and acts and policies and mandates, and they rarely abolish anything. What they do is make modifications and adjustments and amendments and things of that nature. These motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? Like, excuse my frankness, but like, how much more of this are we willing to accept and comply to? Right? It says the U.S. Treasury is now the IMF. And where you're supposed to go to verify this information is the Presidential Documents, Volume 29, dash number 4, page 113, page 22, USC, United States Codes 285 through 288, right? Now, those who are more advanced with this information will tell you that not only do they have all these codes and policies and acts or whatnot, but this shit is copywritten, right? So if you are not a bar card carrying, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you are not an officer of the court and things of that nature. And I'm not, look, I would never tell you not to use any of this information to defend yourself, right? I'm the person who tell you to use all available weapons. I don't care if it's a tort claim. I don't care if it's an affidavit. I don't care if it's a motion to dismiss on grounds of deprivation of rights up under the color of law. Use all that shit, right? My point of contention again is the fact that, brothers and sisters who are outside of this, who the minute that they get into any entanglements with any of these corporate entities, the first thing that they do is go grab an attorney. And you know what I'm talking about? That's not always the route that you need to take. Again, that puts you in a position to participate in what is known as a conflict of interest. So somebody, like myself, who will go about getting these people hands on my pockets on my own, the presentments or, the documents that I use, you would look at me and say, oh, you're a sovereign citizen, the same way that one of these policy enforcers or one of these magistrates, will try to play me, right? When again, we know that a sovereign citizen, those two words don't even go together. That's a complete oxymoron, right? These are things that we know. Again, when it comes to particular signatures and autographs and things of that nature, is no person known as a sovereign citizen who, created that type of information. They just fucking didn't. That's all I'm saying. Just because you hear me mention FOIA, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act office, to go to obtain various documents, you know what I'm saying? Like, that makes me a sovereign citizen because I talk about the Freedom of Information Act. Like, what type of shit is that? What y'all on? Number 8, there are no judicial courts in America, and there has not been since 1789. Judges do not enforce statutes and codes. Executive administrators enforce statutes and codes. So everything that they do, you know what I'm saying? The administrative courts. Y'all start talking about maritime admiralty law and things like this and that, These are things that you can prove and disprove, right? Lord, this is a lot of stuff. Number 17, you own no property. Slaves can't own property. Read the deed to the property that you think is yours. You are listed as a tenant. And that's Senate document 43, 73rd Congress, first session. Like, again, this is no different than, a particular company that you work for putting together particular policies that they feel is going to increase revenue. That's why they got all these. Who the fuck needs millions of statutes and codes? What people, you know what I'm saying, need that much goddamn legislation. Whoa. Treaty of 1213, yeah. This a lot. Shit making me sleepy. Oh, just not finding the full screen.